developed and grown into being one of the sort of lead demand generation and marketing automation specialists. And I'm delighted that she's come across from the west coast of America to join us and to come to Scotland. So Bluebird is a marketing automation demand generation agency for fast-growing tech startups, including established firms and venture-backed startups. And some of your stories about the more traditional businesses in the States that are coming to you will be interesting as well, because it's not all just technology now. It's not all kind of the cutting edge guys. And Bluebird look to act as a flexible adjunct to client marketing and sales teams, finding and filling the gaps in demand management and funnel management, demand generation and funnel management. So Cari is a recognised thought leader, industry speaker, and she has real strengths in that middle of the funnel area around lead nurture, content, process strategy, demand generation planning, content offer development, scoring, program planning, execution and analysis.
I'm a lot of fun at a cocktail party. And what, how do I?
Just press that right button.
Okay, so what Scott failed to mention is that I started when I was 12. So you're doing the math. So thank you for joining us today. The middle of the funnel is really exciting to me and to our team because B2B companies are doing everything they can to generate top of funnel leads, but as you've heard from the previous discussions, if you don't have some sort of process to move the leads through, when it ends up happening is you're paying a lot of money for leads that are just sitting there. And we have a saying around our office, stale is not a status. And so we want to make sure that we know where everybody goes. We either move them through, we move them back, or we move them out. So how many of you are currently using marketing automation? So a smaller group. So I'll try not to go too deep. I talk about 1.0 for lead nurturing and then 2.0, and 2.0 may be a little too deep for you, but I think that some of the fundamental processes that we go through will be good for you, as you're building out your personas, getting a better understanding, and kind of figuring out how you want to communicate to your prospects in conversations, whether they're automated or not. So are you guys that are not using it, are you in the market potentially to acquire Sales Fusion, Pardot, some of the other tools out there? You still kind of evaluating? Okay, so top of funnel leads then, I would say. Plenty of nurturing opportunities. Okay, let's move on here. Where am I pointing this? Okay. So just to quickly kind of reiterate a lot of the stuff that everybody has talked about, but this is really the area that we're going to focus on today. So these are the top of funnel activities that Dave, who I know he's in his pajamas, he said the Movember thing. I'm not buying it. I think he's still in his pajamas. He didn't want us to see his fuzzy slippers. So the marketing automation is the Sales Fusion, the Marketos, the Pardots of the world. This is the area where you're doing your scoring, your qualification, and making that determination. Do we nurture them? If so, what do we say to them? When do we talk to them? Are we moving them directly to sales? The sales send them back to nurturing. And then, of course, what a lot of companies are not doing, which we all find around the holiday time, is nurturing their customers. You've got to make sure that you're nurturing them. It's hilarious. Every year our clients are like, we need to send out the holiday email. We don't know who our customers are. And it's like, well, if you were effectively nurturing your customers all year round, managing your data, being good stewards of those relationships, it's not just we want to send you a holiday email. So any questions on this slide? And I think it kind of encapsulates things in a different way. And I like to put the funnel on the side instead of the traditional top down, because it's not gravity driven, right? It's not really the more you shove in the top, the more you come out the bottom. It's really, this process will determine how many come out the bottom. So, and I have just a couple of examples. I think we may have heard some of those, and Scott can share the deck with you after. But the bottom line is, a lot of us are not doing a good job, and there's huge benefits. I love the slide that Scott shared with the serious decisions, best practices. Even I've got a model that I run for clients, and even just small tweaks in those percentages, small efficiencies will have a big impact on your numbers. This is really our approach to lead nurturing. Okay, so think of this as your database. Okay, your database is a big pie. If you're effectively managing your data, if you're categorizing everyone, I call it buckets, but you should know their industry of your prospects. You should know about how big they are. You should know kind of what role that they play. And then you can really think about, okay, so I'm going to be nurturing them in this type of process. I know where they are in the process. I know where I want to nurture them. Maybe here's some different types of content that I want to share with them. And again, going back to, let's onboard our new customer. Let's send them nice emails along the way so that they're not just hearing from us once a year or when we want to sell to them, that we're really engaging with them and sharing and developing a relationship. So this is really what this slide is meant to show. Not that your database is going to be this way, but if you look at your database as a holistic thing, and the goal is to understand where everybody is in your database and how to communicate with them so that everybody is being nurtured in some way. So, any questions so far? So I'm gonna dive a little bit deep here. So Scott, if I go too deep, let me know. So 1.0 versus 2.0. So the drip is your traditional, probably what you're doing if you're using email marketing platforms like Constant Contact or Vertical Response or any of those types of tools, where you're just sending emails out one at a time. You can automate them, but you're going to send them this, and then you're going to send them that, and it's just kind of this series of emails that go out, and that's a start. It's a good approach because there's some sort of methodology in at least starting that communication, watching, listening, measuring, responding. But really, this is behind me, so I've got to turn around. So this is kind of a flow of a 1.0. And this is just boxes and triangles in, I think this is probably Excel. But just starting to think about, okay, what is the process? What is the plan? Whether you're using marketing automation, whether you're using an email marketing platform or something like that, start to think about and track and measure how you're communicating to them. So going back to what Scott had mentioned earlier, thinking about the stages of the buying cycle, and we'll go into this a little bit later, but you should have a pretty good understanding of your content. Where does it fit? If you do nothing today, go back and make sure you've got a content matrix that has all the different content assets and how they fit in the buying cycle, because that's a really important first piece to make sure that you understand what's missing. Number one, you're looking at 2015 budgets. What new content pieces can I create? Well, if you've got them in a matrix, you're going to see, well, we're missing maybe some more awareness topics, or we don't have anything for the consideration phase. So you can focus your efforts on that. But really being able to identify where your content is in the buying cycle will help you kind of think through how you want to set up your nurture campaigns. So awareness, education, consideration, kind of the basic model to follow. So if you're setting up a 1.0 nurture, kind of try to align it like that. Okay, so what's your awareness? Assuming everybody coming into the top of the funnel is new, right? They're trying to learn more about their problem, and are you the right solution for them? So one little trick that we've been doing, because we're finding that in a lot of cases, companies are not new. They just happen to drop in, but really they're here. So sometimes we do what we call an inverted email. So we'll put the high level awareness content, but then maybe it's a PS, or maybe it's an added offer that is something that's late stage, and kind of watch it and see, oh, they're more interested in an ROI calculator, or they're more interested in a vendor comparison sheet. Well, what's that going to tell you? That's going to tell you they're not there, they're here. If you're scoring them, then my suggestion would be to pass those guys to sales, because they're probably more further along in their own buying process. So this is 1.0. This next one is kind of crazy, but this back here. This is 2.0. It looks complicated, but really we're going to talk a little bit more about this. What this is showing is what I've done here, and this is done in Pardot, which I think, Scott, you have a lot of clients that are using Pardot right now. Sales Fusion, you can do this. Marketo, it's not super complicated, but what it's doing is it's allowing you to move people between the buying stages. Okay, so this is one nurture, and we've set up the early stage, middle stage, late stage, and we've ran a variety of content pieces in each of these, and we're watching what are they doing. Okay, so if they're engaging in certain things here, well, we think that they're not going to go all the way down to the bottom and start at the top there. We may move them directly over here, or move them directly over here. So it's really, as you get more advanced and sophisticated in your nurturing and understanding your buyer, then you will be able to serve up more content that is more relevant to them in their buying process, as opposed to just giving them whatever's next in line. So, that's good. This is better. So eventually, when you get to the point where you've got enough content to do this client had nothing when we started, nothing. So they have worked with a company called Content for Demand, which we do a lot of work with, to create a couple of white papers, a couple of infographics, and an ebook, I think, and then the rest of this is blogs. So we really pushed for a blogging strategy, because that's great for inbound, for SEO, for all those things, but it also makes great nurture content. So we were able to kind of guide them on their content strategy, their blogging strategy, to fill in the holes where we needed to, and it didn't cost them anything other than some incentives to get some of their subject matter experts off their hinds to get it done. But this is the goal, right? And it's not super sophisticated, but it's really, really going to make sure that you're covered in each stages of your buyer's journey. Yeah.
Is the content being delivered via email?
Primarily, yes. However, recommend if you've got an inside sales team, or maybe your sales team is required to make certain outbound calls, we may put, if there's a couple content pieces in here that we think might warrant a sales call, we'll put a sales trigger in there. So when somebody engages with that piece of content, it's not moving them to sales per se. It's more, hey, I saw that you read this white paper on how to automate your business process. Did you find it interesting? It's not a sales call, but it's another touch. It's another way to reach out. And in some cases, depending on your technology composition, you may want to send your nurture emails from Bob Smith, who is going to be the one calling, right? So you're it's, hey, this is Bob. Oh, yeah, I remember Bob. He's the guy that sent me emails, right? So that's another strategy. We do have clients that make up names so that it comes from a person. And I've got some data on what types of names pull better, which is kind of interesting. But it seems the Anglo-Saxon female names like Jessica are highly trusted senders for whatever reason. So,
a follow-up question. If a lot of it's being driven through email, then spam filters are getting incredibly aggressive. I even get my own customer email ending up in spam.
Definitely.
So any tricks around there?
Well, that's a whole other conversation, but I think deliverability and reliability is something that we all need to be mindful of. As you move more towards more of an inbound strategy where people are actually signing up for things through Captora, through your website, through those types of things, you're going to see the issues with spam start to go away. But yeah, absolutely look at your technology. You probably want to have a dedicated IP address and not sharing one with other companies, because your reputation will be balanced by that.
I was just going to add to that, Cari. I think from practical experience, what I've found is that historically you're picking up a legacy issue that if you've been transmitting, let's call them spam emails from a domain, so lots of info apps and general sort of buying lists and 40,000 mails going out from your at whatever.com, you're going to be ranking somewhere on a spam filter. I think that points again to kind of one of the house cleaning things that I might pick up, and if someone reminds me politely in my speech, which is about having a good quality database and the benefits of that versus having 40,000 spam addresses that you kind of picked up along the way, and the impact that can have in terms
Yeah,
of
absolutely. Thanks, Neil, for pointing that out. And I wouldn't recommend, well, I'm a consultant, of course, and so we're rated on our ROI, but I would not recommend nurturing people that haven't responded. And so if you remember going back to the circle diagram, we have warm-up campaigns. So those are kind of the, throwing out the fishing line, and kind of validating, is what I think about you true? Then they raise their hand, and then you say, oh, okay, I'm going to move you into the nurture. If you've got somebody that's not paying attention and you keep hammering them, they're not replying, they've never raised their hand, that's where you run into risk of getting reported and other problems like that.
So, can you measure at each stage of the funnel? Top of the funnel, very, very, very wide, and then obviously you want to get to the bottom where the sign up is approaching.
Mm-hmm.
Can you measure using this system the number of emails to be sent out to get one sign up for each stage?
Absolutely.
Rough numbers, not.
Well, that goes back to what we use if we know nothing else.
Yep.
And so there's a process that you go through, and we'll touch on this briefly, but you want to, so you've got your demand funnel, you've got your top of funnel leads, then you've got what's called marketing qualified, so it's your pre-marketing qualified leads, your marketing qualified, that's typically where you say, here you go sales, take it, have fun. Then they will decide, yeah, okay, that's good, I'm gonna accept it, sales accepted, I'm gonna qualify it and move it into pipeline, sales qualified, right? So those metrics are the really important thing to understand. It goes back to what Scott was talking about, the series decisions funnel. When you understand those metrics, then you can do anything, right? Because then you can look, you can flip it over, and you can say, okay, my revenue goal this year is 5 million. I know that my each deal size is 50,000. Okay, then I know that this percent converts to this percent converts to this percent. So guess what? I need 500 new leads per week in the top of the funnel to make my revenue goal. And that's the beauty of it, is once you understand what those conversion rates are.
The question was rough numbers. How many emails are you talking about to get to one sign up?
To one sign, well,
Is it 1,000? 20,000?
So when you say emails,
Initial,
okay.
And then getting to this stage, because it'll be fewer because it's targeted.
okay, so the top of the funnel is not just email, right?
Oh.
So it's live events, it's PPC, it's email, it's webinars, it's a bunch of other activities. I would say, if you're going to make me commit to something, I would say, for every 10 that come in, 1 will move through.
It's high.
Well, it depends. I mean, but it 1 in 10 have the potential to be something, right? And I think you said on your slide, you had said 3 to 5% of your database has the potential. So, depending on your sales cycle. And again, it's if you are playing where your buyers are playing, right? If you're writing blogs and doing content and participating in activities that they want to learn about, those are the things that are going to increase your numbers. Is this too much? Are we good? Okay, all right. I just love this. I know, I'm like, oh yeah, this is just beautiful to me. But so let's talk about, so at a high level, and we mentioned earlier, feed the beast. So I wouldn't stick cold leads into a nurture. It's going to skew your numbers, right? You're not going to have a good understanding of how many of those people are just people that I have a name of that I just keep sending an email to. You've got to have a combination of inbound and outbound. So inbound meaning, blogging, using SEO, SEM, and then outbound are your outbound emails, getting people to raise their hand, trade shows if you go to events, those types of things. But definitely these things live on and on. So you make an effort, you build them, you have to watch them. It's not, set it and go, but you can create it, and it will be useful for you for 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, and more. So, and Neil was mentioning the data, and this is really important. So you've got to have a good understanding of your database. You need to know roles, titles, industries, any way that you want to segment, because the goal of a good nurture is, that aha moment when you get an email and you're like, oh, how did they know? How did they know I was shopping for red shoes today? It's those kinds of moments that you want your buyer to go, how did they know that I am, looking for a new financial planning application? That, we're not able to consolidate our books, within a 5, day period at the end of the month. It's a big pain for me. We're consolidating spreadsheets, right? So it's that kind of, you catch the CFO, maybe on the 3rd day of his financial consolidation, he's in that pain, he's in that moment, and he gets your email and he's like, oh yeah, I can't do this anymore, I really need to talk to someone. Okay, so if you don't know your buyer from a messaging standpoint and a business card standpoint, you're not going to get very far. So the data stewardship is something that you need to keep in mind always. And having good content, and as I mentioned, it doesn't have to be and at least in the US, there is a big movement away from big white papers because the people are, they want more just digestible nuggets. So ebooks are great, infographics are great. If you've got white papers, take them and break them up, maybe into 5 or 6 different pieces, and they can be little mini white paperettes or something, and you can serve them up that way, because people really want to digest information in bullet point format these days. And I think you'll find when you talk to your sales colleagues, if you're a marketer, they're going to say, yeah, when I picked up the phone and called this guy, he actually read it, as opposed to just downloading it and it's a 20-page white paper that nobody's going to have the time to go through. So content, good content, doesn't have to be a big headache. And getting in and really understanding your personas, and I'll talk a little bit about this here in a bit, and it's critical because the more that you're doing persona-based nurturing, again, you're going to have that aha moment with your buyer. So this is a good slide. I borrowed it from someone, so I'm not going to take credit for it, but I like it because it kind of buckets the types of things that you can tackle at each of the different stages. So, this kind of follows the process that Scott was talking about earlier, but, at the top of the funnel, people are asking, what's my problem? Here's the stuff that they're looking for. Here's some simple things that you might be able to create for your top of funnel content. The middle of the funnel, really, I'm really getting in, I'm learning more, I want to understand a lot more. Really focus on, readiness, how to choose a vendor, how does it work, kind of getting queued up for that next stage, which is where you're going to want to get sales involved. And then certainly sales enablement is where we get in and really talk about, are you the right vendor for me? So again, putting all of your content into buckets and categorizing them by their buying stage will be helpful. So this is where we're going to go a little bit deeper, and we talked a little bit about personas, but the way that you want to think about your persona, and you really got to understand it. And does anybody here use personas in their marketing right now? Are the personas, did you actually call customers to come up with your, okay, so I would recommend maybe, you know, as a goal for next quarter, to call customers, maybe 5 or 10 customers, have a conversation with them, record the conversation, and see, does it validate what you were thinking about for their personas? Because a lot of times, if it's the sales team or the product marketing team, you know, once you're kind of in your own organization, you talk the way that you talk, and sometimes you find that customers are using just a little bit different language. Maybe their problems are stated differently. So, you know, if you can collect that information, it will be really, really helpful, because that will help you build out your content tracks or your conversation tracks. The other thing is make sure that you're clear on where do they engage in the buying cycle. So, for example, with this client, they have actually 5 personas. They have their executives, the people that run digital advertising, their operations, marketing, and sales. So we had a number of conversations with their customers and prospects and internal people, and we realized that not everybody engaged at every stage in the buying cycle. So there were certain people that were engaging early on, there were others that were engaging in the middle, and then there were others that were engaging later on. So this is really important, because if you think about, as you're developing your nurtures, you've got to make sure that you're delivering the right type of content to the right persona at the right time. Okay? Any questions on this slide? We'll talk a little bit more about that. So, going back to the buying process. So these are the buying processes that I know what my where my customers' personas fit, right? I know that the CEO engages, or the C-level engages here, but they don't engage here. I know that the operations person engages at all 3 stages. These are the lead management stages that I was talking about. Are you guys familiar with, or do you follow like the marketing qualified, sales qualified, lead process? Okay, so if you can take your buying process and align it to your lead management process, that's really going to be valuable for you. So if you're able to say, I know that my need identification and vendor engagement process or stage of the buying process maps to my marketing qualified and sales accepted, that's going to help you build out, when you're looking at building out specific nurtures in this area, you're going to know which personas to target that to, okay? So typically, again, as I mentioned, marketing qualified is the marketing automation piece. Then as we get further along, this is where they engage, we engage with sales. So again, the more that you can understand about your buying process, lead management stages, we do whole day-long workshops on this stuff, so it's not something I really want to go into now, but having a good understanding of how to align your lead management stages with your buying process will help you as you're developing conversation tracks. Okay, did I lose you on this one? Okay. This is the, we just move on. So this is how you would build the lead nurturing track then, right? So we had our personas, we had an understanding of how they map to our lead process, and now here's where we can go in and say, okay, this is what I'm going to create, this is what I'm going to create for when, this is the entire process. So when we say conversation tracks, it's really getting into you know, their specific buying process pain points, right? What are those things when we interviewed our customers, when we were building out our personas, what did they say? Did they say, you know, I'm tired, Dave had a couple of them, I'm tired of being in the the end of quarter board meeting and everybody's asking for these reports that we can't generate. There's a number of different buying pain points that will help you to create these conversation tracks. So when you think of conversation tracks, think of that one-to-one dialogue where you're talking to that person, dear Bob, I know this is where you are, I know this is what you're experiencing, would like to talk to you, or share this information that will help you address the need that you have right now. Yeah? Okay. So let's just touch on lead scoring. So that's really all I'm going to talk about for lead nurturing. Are there any questions related to that? I've got some takeaways at the end. With lead nurturing, start small, but have a goal and have some big ideas, because there's really a lot that you can do once you start automating this stuff. Having your personas nailed down and really understanding that is going to be a huge help, and you'll find, again, those interviews, transcripts, save them. Your salespeople will love them because they'll have a better understanding of what the issues are that the buyers are facing. If you can interview prospects, that's even better because they're not converted, but it's hard, they don't really want to talk to you. You could interview, if your audience, say, is a marketing manager, maybe you could do a little campaign that, you can do a mini survey or something and give them a gift card or something to participate. At least you'd be able to collect some information from the prospects. So lead scoring is critical for the middle of the funnel because it is what is going to tell us who do we want to talk to. So is anybody currently doing lead scoring at this point, either manual or automated? Okay, yeah, a little. So how are you using it to align and transform your sales and marketing organization?
We'll just say badly. So this is where we've got come up with our own we call them factors. To just the list is too big. Try to identify growth companies with certain growth characteristics, but there's just too many. So how do you start? So there's been an event of ours before. They've got some social gap on an award or something like that. So we just assigning. It's literally 8 factors, one in each of these factors.
Great.
It's pretty basic stuff that's done on Excel.
Well, and so it's working, right? And so if somebody maybe is at a 4, they have 4 factors, or is that, do you have a process where you say, okay, we know enough about these that we're going to pass them to sales to have a conversation?
That's kind of where we're at.
Okay, good. So when you're building a lead scoring model, really consider 3 things. One is the demographic, which is the business card stuff, who they are. One is the behavior, it's what they're doing. So, even if you don't have a marketing automation tool right now, you can track their behavior on using Google Analytics. You should have forms on your website so that when they come in and sign up, that you know what did they sign up for. Maybe give them points for, maybe you have an early stage content piece and a late stage content piece. Give them 5 points for the early stage and 20 points for the late stage, right? Because this is more valuable. What they're asking for is more valuable because they're further along in the buying process. So really understanding what they're doing is important. There's also tools out there that Leadlander is one that helps you track web visitors and get some ideas of what they're doing there. And then the qualification criteria is important. So when we build a scoring model, we typically weight these 3 things. So this is if you're at a trade show, you've got a card, or if you've got a webinar, you're asking a survey at the end, or if they're registering for something on your website, you want to ask them a question. And it's not the BANT type stuff, but it's more, what's that insight for you that oh, they've got a pain point that we can address right now. I always go back to the financial consolidation because one of our longest clients, it's all about a fast, clean close. And if you're taking more than 5 days to close your books, you have a big pain point. So that's one of the questions we like to ask. How long does it take to close your books at the end of the month? That's going to tell us. Is it 6 to 10? Okay, maybe they're not as hot. Is it 10 till the next month? Well, they definitely have more of a need than somebody that would say 1 to 5. So we're going to score those guys higher. So it's really good. You have your data, you understand it, you understand what they're doing, then you start ranking and scoring. And then what's going to happen is you pass the leads on to sales that they're actually going to want to have a conversation with. And they're going to thank you, and they're going to love you, because maybe less leads coming to them, but they're going to be more qualified, more robust sales conversations at this point. Any questions on lead scoring? Okay, so just a quick little case study, because again, as I said, that we're consultants and we have to prove that it works. So this is one that we had done a year or so ago. We did Awake the Dead, which if you remember in the little content or in the little nurture diagram, the Awake the Dead was targeting leads that had not done anything for a long time. So we went in and we shook them. And I call it dumpster diving, because in the old days, salespeople would just, if it wasn't an immediate need or immediate opportunity, they just disqualify. So we'd go dumpster diving, digging through the disqualified. And we did this campaign. It was for a company that, for government contracts. And so we had created a couple real simple content pieces that were very specific for the government contract opportunities that they were selling in. But we had a 13% response rate, so not bad. Fairly decent open rates, click through. But really, the forwards, 24 opportunities that were influenced and 3 that were created. And the big value was they got 2 deals right away within the first month of the campaign. It was $200,000 and $5 million added to pipeline. So that justified our time, their time. And this is definitely made an impact for them for the year. So again, it wasn't complicated. It was very targeted, very focused. But we spent the time to know who are we targeting, what did they want to hear, and let's go wake them up and see if we can't get some money out of leads that we've already spent money on. We've already invested in them, and they're just sitting there. So I'm going to wrap up here with some takeaways for success. So if you're starting with 1.0, start with a core, as I was calling it, a core, which is the linear. Put your content into buying stages and just map out your content in that way. Maybe do Awake the Dead, which is the going into your disqualifieds and multiple offers maybe that have different buying stages, so you can see where they're interested. Maybe I can make some assumptions based on what they're engaging in. Embryonic, I like to, the warm-up campaigns we call embryonic, but if you've got a bunch of leads in your database that you're not really sure about, maybe you do a couple emails to ask them some questions and get them to respond, and then you can decide what kind of a nurture you want to go with from there. So that's a good way to start. If you're going to try to get more advanced, again, the stage-based nurturing, which is that 3-stage where we can really build out in each of the stages. Triggered sophistication, which is basically if they're responding to something like something about budgeting and planning, then then you serve up the next piece, something about budgeting and planning. If they're responding about something for consolidation, then the next piece you serve up is about consolidation. So you're kind of trying to get a little bit more sophisticated in what you send them, and not just send them whatever's next in the queue. The inverted strategy, I suggest you guys try that. It's what I talked about, where you have an early and a late stage piece of content. See if it works. See if you get any insight from that. We did with one client. We did a video that was a how we did this. It was a data warehouse automation solution. How did we do this? And the first one is, what is data warehouse automation? And we were able to make some assumptions based on if they wanted to know how instead of what. that they were further along, and we pulled those out and sent them to the sales team, so based on the score. Multiple channel, again, we talked about, not just email, but if you can do some telephone touches in your nurturing process, it's only going to enhance the program. And again, separate nurture for new and existing customers. Nobody wants to be talked to like they don't know who you are when they're actually, giving you a check every month. So, and I think just want to touch on some best practices here. Have a goal. Again, maybe it's a staged goal where we're going to start, small and grow big. Put some numbers in place so that you can measure against it. And feel free to email me for benchmark numbers, because we've been doing this for a number of years now, and I can tell you, this is where you should probably set for a benchmark on where to start. Mobile friendly, it's a big thing. Statistics are showing that, more and more people are looking to engage with content on their mobile devices. And so if you're not making your email designs responsive, you're going to see your numbers go down. Again, HTML or not, same thing. Some audiences prefer text. The technical people that we engage with, they don't want any marketing graphics or fluffy stuff. So know your audience and serve up content to them that that they're it's going to be more meaningful to them. Again, have a good content map and map the content to stages, and get product interest early. If you have multiple products, the more that you can get from them early on, then the better you can do of sending them information that's going to be relevant to them. And I always have to say this over and over again. We have to remind our clients it's not about you, it's about the customer. So always take a look at what their view is, communicate in their language. Don't tell them how wonderful you are. Tell them how you understand where they are in the process and you'd like to work with them to solve that problem. I know it's easier said than done, but again, test, monitor, revise, monitor, revise. So I hope I didn't go too far over. I hope I didn't lose everyone too much. But as you can see, it's a work in progress, and whether you have technology to support it or not, there's definitely some things that you can get going on, to become more sophisticated as a marketer and a better partner to your sales organization. Any questions?
Cool.